Oftentimes we get asked, what do we do with the wood when we're done cutting it? Like, what do we do with the wood after we're done working on a tree job and we chip all the brush and we make the tree go away and we clean up after ourselves and all that? What do we do with the truckload of wood that we oftentimes get? Well, if it's worth keeping, we'll keep it. What constitutes wood that's worth keeping? A couple different things. We could make lumber out of it and use it for different projects, if it's wood that's worth keeping as lumber. Other times, we might use it for firewood or, little campfires and such. So in this case, we're going to be using it for firewood. Why would we need firewood, especially this time of year? Well, we don't exactly have an indoor burning stove, but we do have an outdoor burning stove. And that outdoor burning stove heats up the entire house and all the hot water. Notice the way this wood is stacked. It's stacked in such a way that will be easier to cut it with a chainsaw now that it's propped up all against this log in the middle of this entire pile that's kind of teepeed up a little bit. Where is this wood coming from? Well, on the other side of this truck, where the cat is grabbing the wood from, which you don't see, is the truck. The truck is full of this wood from a different job. And that's where that wood came from. Oftentimes we'll leave the cat on the trailer because it's a lot more convenient to just leave it on there if we're just going to use it for a simple little thing where the cat doesn't have to move or have to move around or anything like that. So we'll just leave it on the trailer and kind of use the truck to kind of cart it around. It saves us time from having to load it up again whenever we need it. It's not the most elegant solution, but it works for us. And here you can see it's pretty easy for us to cut the things that we need to cut. Obviously, we cannot get to the bottom of the pile and cut those, but we'll get around to it because we have this machine. This here is a skid steer. Pretty old, not the newest machine we have by any means, but it's plenty capable, gets the job done. The first scoop is pretty good most times, but it's never going to be enough. In order to maximize our time and maximize the load that it can hold, we need to manually throw each little log in there that we just freshly cut. And that's not usually a problem. There's a certain ratio of weight that you need to hit in order to make the log liftable, obviously. The larger the diameter of the log, the smaller the log you'll want to cut. Makes it easier to lift. That's probably basic knowledge, but, it pays to really pay attention to that when you're actually running the chainsaw. We kind of have to manage the stack in such a way that'll take up as much of the space as we possibly can. That way we're not wasting a trip, and we're not wasting our time. He even has to be pretty careful when moving that bucket full of wood, because if he's not careful, some of those logs we just stacked in there might actually spill out, and then we'll have to retrieve it, and it can just add a little bit of work to the load of the day, but that's not a big deal. So he's delivering the wood up to the furnace. This furnace is an industrial outdoor wood burning furnace, and it is responsible for heating up the forced hot air within the heating system of the entire house, as well as heating all of the hot water for the showers and washing your hands and such. We deliberately put the wood here. We normally would like to probably use a dump truck in order to stack all of that wood and just dump it all in the spot where it needs to be there, but the awning over this dump area doesn't allow us enough room to use a dump truck or anything like that. So this skid steer works just fine with the bucket and the big grapple arms on that. It works absolutely fine. No issue there. In fact, it's small enough to get in there, but the bucket is large enough to really put a dent in our workload. Saves us a lot of work. Saves us a lot of back problems. Usually while he's dumping all of that wood, I will be over here running a chainsaw. because these are the logs that were covered up by all the smaller logs that were cut on top. I'm signaling him to move a little bit closer because I don't want to throw the wood that far, and I'm sure he doesn't either. If only it were that easy to load up an entire stack of logs that quickly. This chainsaw that I'm using here is probably overkill for what I'm doing. The chainsaw I was using before was the Steel 029, and it was plenty capable, but I think the chain was a little bit dull on it. And so now I'm using the Steel 661, which is very, very fast, extremely powerful, and it's way more capable than anything that we own. And it can be extremely dangerous if you don't respect the power that this kind of a chainsaw has. Normally I wouldn't be using such an oversized chainsaw for this type of a job, but it was faster, and we just wanted to get the job done. Though, using a saw like this really hurts my back after a while, so luckily with the two of us, we don't have to spend too long of a time cutting up all this wood. As you can see here, sometimes it's not a matter of strength, it's a matter of leverage. In fact, I would wager that usually it's more of a matter of leverage for most of the jobs that we do. Which is probably why I'm built like a string bean still, after doing this for so many years. If you've ever run a chainsaw, you should know that the last thing you want to do is run the saw blade through the ground. That'll dull it up in just a split second. So this is a nice, easy technique you can use in order to not have to touch the chainsaw blade to the ground. And if you're not careful about where you place your feet, you could slip on anything. Could have been a big mess right there. But we press on because we just want to get the job done. We don't get dramatic about our mistakes or brushes with death. We just want to get the job done, and we learn from our mistakes. And that will be the last load of logs for the day.
Alright, those two saws should both go in the shop. Probably both a little bit dull. Yeah,
And that's all there is to it.